innovation, that was really the part where we had to do our first business idea submission. Okay, so all of you guys have done your business idea submission. Honestly, guys, I have completed marking about 21 of your assignments. I have 14 to go, and I have been given a timeline to complete it by Wednesday next week, which I will complete, and then you'll have feedback. One or two of you guys called me separately and got some feedback on some of the ones that I had already marked. So what we've done so far is you've submitted, about your business idea, about your business model, and something about the financials. That's like in summary to say, this is my proposition. Now, as you get into your detailed plan, it's a real comprehensive business plan that you're going to prepare, a very comprehensive one. Now, I'm assuming that Nadisha shared with you a draft business plan, provided by the university, and all of you have seen that and have gone through that to get an idea of how it needs to be prepared. Okay, I'm assuming that has already happened. I sent that out immediately after the lecture last week that we had. Okay, so take that as sort of a draft of how you need to prepare your detailed business plan. When you get into the business plan, the first thing that you need to do is to further detail on your business idea. You have now, repeating myself, summarily provided your business idea, your business model, and your draft financials. You need to start building on this based on all the lectures we did from that point. For example, we did feasibility study, we did business plan, we did entrepreneurial finance. Today we are going to do business growth strategies. So taking it from there, guys, you must further detail out the business idea. Now, I've gone through, as I said, 21, I think, of your papers, and most of you have done a good job in terms of explicitly telling what your business idea is, but some could kind of explain it a little further. As I've kept mentioning to you, when you're doing a verbal presentation or something like that, it's easy to express yourself better. But when you write it, articulation, and I've kept mentioning this word, articulation of how it works must be explained very clearly. So you've got an opportunity now to really detail out your business idea again. Okay, so as you get into the business plan, detail out your business idea. You must talk about the market and the competitive analysis, competition in the market. When you provided your initial business proposal, you have touched on it here and there, but right now you need to get into more of competition in the market, what your strategies are to defeat or kill competition or become, a monopoly or whatever. You must talk about your sales, marketing, and promotional strategy. How are you? Because this, remember, whenever a new venture is brought about, the most important element is creating awareness. How do you get people to know, or how do you get the market to know what is my business that I'm bringing out? Creating awareness is very, very important. With that, your sales, marketing, and promotional strategy must come out very clearly. As you do that, so when any business plan is done in any organization, be it mature or startup, you start with your revenue. To create your financials, you start with your revenue. So in this business plan, you need to show your revenue for 12 months, right? 12 months, month on month. And then the next 2 years, I said it's a 36-month or 3-year period that we need to cover. The other 2 years in annual basis presentation is sufficient, right? So start off with your sales revenue, detail it out for the first 12 months, then talk about year 2 and year 3. Based on that, you need to devise your operation strategy. What is your staff requirements? What are your process requirements, your IT requirements, etc. And then that needs to be mapped out. So revenue, you'll have your raw material costs and all that are coming into play. your operations setup, which will detail out how you're going to carry out your business model, what it entails and what the costs comes out of that. And through that, you will do your financial plans. How am I now going to fund it? We talked about that last week. What are the sources of funds? How would I choose which fund that I'm going to go for? Am I going to go for equity funding? Am I going to go for debt funding? Am I going to go for the mixer of a two? Am I going to go into a partnership? Am I going to give equity shares for somebody else, such as a venture capitalist or an angel investor? That needs to be detailed out. In addition to that, you need to talk about your payback period, your break-even analysis, etc. that needs to come into play. In all that I told you, be it market and competitive analysis, be it your sales, marketing and promotional strategy, be it your projections and revenue for the 36 months that you're going to talk about, be it your operation strategy, be it your financial plans and your financial funding sources, be it your pricing strategy, and be it even your break-even analysis, your payback periods, we really need to see creativity in all aspects. How creative are you in terms of your sales and marketing? How creative are you in terms of dealing with your competition? How creative are you in funding, choosing the best sources and means of funding that comes into play, okay? Whilst we want to see creativity in all aspects of what I just mentioned, we also need to see scalability and sustainability, that you're able to scale the business, right? That it's able to become from merely a startup, goes into growth, maturity, from maturity, further strategies, and sustainability. When I say sustainability, it's not just sustainability from the sense of environmental or social, but financial sustainability, that you can maintain your business as a going concern in the long term, right? So that needs to come into play. You also have to have a lot of research and references, okay? Where are you getting your data from and how you got that data? You can use charts and graphs to glorify your assignment and presentation, and the word count can be plus or minus 10%. So in overall, when you submit it this time, right, it can be up to 3,000 words plus 10% mean about 3,300 words should be fine. So in summary, guys, that's what is looked at from the assignment perspective. Okay. Do I have any questions there? We'll do a detailed one, in the coming weeks, but today I wanted to give it to you, saying that since I've already shared with you a draft presentation and you have submitted your initial assignments, and since we have covered feasibility study, business plans, and entrepreneurial finance, you can start on your detail. Any questions, guys, or can I move on?
Ashiq,
yeah.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. First one is actually, can we contextualize this to nowadays term? Like for an example, now when it comes to growth and stuff, can we actually talk about the COVID-19 aspect, and because of this, the market has actually shrunk, but in future we are expecting a growth. Can we do that in the sign?
Ishan and rest of the team, please note, you can completely ignore the COVID-19 virus spread completely when you talk about growth strategies or how your business is going to evolve. You will talk about it in normal market conditions prior to COVID-19. Just forget about that aspect. All other stuff you can bring into context.
Got it, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'm going to move on from here. So that's the overview there. Then, guys, in terms of getting into today's subject matter and recapping what we did, I always like doing that so that it gives context to where we are and how we're going to get about. We covered, entrepreneurship and creativity in our first lecture. We talked about different entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial traits, etc.
Ashiq, can I just bother you for a moment, because I just lost my connection. I got back in.
Yes.
And you said it should be 3,000, but in the assignment brief, it says 2000 word. Is it 3000 or 2000 on the detail under the detail plan?
Detailed plan overall is 3,000 words. That takes into account what you've already done, the 1,000-word assignment.
Including that.
Including that.
Including that.
Right.
Right. Okay.
That's right.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. So moving on, we talked about, this whole subject matter is about entrepreneurship, innovation, creativity, and startups, really. So we did that in the first lecture. Then we went on to talk about ecosystems, entrepreneurial opportunities, identifying opportunities, stuff like that. Once we said we identify our opportunity, we need to understand the ecosystem, and then based on that, create a business model or a innovative business models. And we saw examples on Spotify's and Amazon's and all of that stuff. Covered all of that. We went into a little bit at that stage, talking about how you need to raise funds, etc. And then you submitted your first assignment. From there, we then covered feasibility study, and we went into business plan, right? A detailed business plan, which Andy covered with you. And last week we talked about entrepreneurial finance, the sources of finance. How do you choose between the sources of finance? Equity finance, debt finance, and all of that. Today, we are going to cover business growth or business growth strategy. The idea here is all about how are we going to grow our business, right? At the end of the lecture, we'll talk about whether we want to really grow or not also. Certain businesses maybe wants to create a niche, stick to that, and continue with that. That could be an option. But today, we're really going to talk about business growth. How do we grow our business? What growth strategy can we adopt? That means, which way do we pursue growth? We also need to consider the time we decide, okay, I want to scale my business and grow my business. What is the environment out there? Is it conducive? Right? And finally, we will discuss, when we do that, we will talk about the growth models, theories, and concepts that we'll cover in today's area. And we'll finally have a discussion on, should we grow or shouldn't we grow? What factors should we take into consideration if we are growing or not growing? Okay. So these are the areas that we will cover overall today. So this, guys, is quite an important area for your assignment. Hence the reason I covered your detailed assignments, because you must start getting your mindset around, this is a 36-month period or a 3-year period. You need to think about that business idea. How am I going to grow this? Because I'm not going to stay static from month 1 to month 36. No, there'll be some amount of growth that continues. So today we're going to talk about how that is going to be and what strategies, theories that you could use in terms of growing your business. Okay. Moving a little deeper, broadly, any organization can divide growth into 2 aspects: internal or organic growth, or external growth, right? Going beyond the boundaries of the organization for growth, or looking internally or organically, that is within yourself, that you devise growth strategies from within yourself. Okay, so let's take a couple of minutes to talk about internal organic growth strategies. How do you grow within yourself, right? Here, you will look at product or process enhancements. Okay, so you will look at, okay, what is this product and service that I have? How can I penetrate the market further? How can I make my product more attractive? Through either a service offering, through brand image that I create, through the features of the product. So the organization within itself comes up with ideas to grow. On the process side, how can I make my processes more efficient through cost engineering? How can I increase my quality level so I can differentiate with my competition in order to make the idea here is to make yourself more attractive in the market so that your business grows. Now here, one of the main things that we need to realize in organic or internal growth, you try to grow your business with the money that you make. One aspect is you can use retained profits. You can borrow in order to grow the business. Okay. So everything is done within the organizational structures. You're not going beyond that. You can borrow, you can use retained profits, you can put that investment in and devise ways of making yourself more attractive. Therefore, market acceptance of your product becomes better and your business grows. Is that clear? Any questions on that? Or can I move on?
Ask one question. So
Yes.
if you companies like Uber,
Yes.
They basically grow within, as in they would enter to new markets, they would get into Uber Eats and other Uber fleets and other business models.
Yeah.
But how they, not through their retained profit, but they go and raise investment. So that comes under external or internal?
No, you're growing within yourselves. No, you're going borrowing funds and doing it. It's still internal.
Then it's still internal, right? If you're raising still money and that's
right.
Still
internal.
Yeah, okay.
It's still internal. Huh? That's a very good question, and thanks for asking that. Even if you borrow money, it's internal. Okay. External is a little different. Here you are going to get partners for growth. You go and depend on growing your business through entering into partnerships, right? You merge with another company and your business becomes bigger. You acquire another company, the business becomes bigger. For example, Facebook acquiring WhatsApp, right? So you have grown through mergers or acquisitions. In the advertising industry long years ago, Phoenix, Ogilvy and Mather merged and created a big organization. Okay. So likewise here, you go and merge with, you acquire another business and create a bigger business. That is business through growth. Business through growth through external means. Now, for example, you know, you take your businesses. Now you're doing everything by yourself as a startup. Imagine you want to just imagine for a moment, you want to go overseas and expand your business. Now, can you do it by yourself? Or would you need to partner with another company overseas in order to grow your business overseas? So those are the decisions that you take when you're looking at external growth. So you merge or acquire, you create strategic alliances and partnerships. And these integrations can be horizontal or vertical. And we'll get into that in a few moments. I hope all of you can differentiate and understand from a growth strategy perspective, what is internal or organic growth and how you grow externally through mergers, acquisitions, strategic alliances. Questions? You need to be very clear on this as we move. Okay, so I'm going to move from here. So we understand now, we want to grow our business. We have an idea. We're going to grow within ourselves to start up. We are going to make ourselves more attractive to the market so that we grow through product or process enhancements. And that would be organic growth. The funding of that could be through equity or debt, whichever way. We want to grow beyond. We may have a strategy of having external growth where we merge with another company, we partner with another company, or we acquire another company. Or we create strategic alliances where we go as one front to our market. And these could be horizontal or vertical, which we'll get into. So one of the most common, well accepted and sort of very easy to understand growth strategies is the Ansoff matrix. I'm sure every one of you at some point in your education has come across this and done this in detail to die. It has two axes that covers markets and products, existing markets, existing product, new markets, new products, and you come up with either a market penetration strategy, a market development strategy, product development, or a diversification strategy. I'm sure this is very, very common to all of you and very well understood. Just touching on diversification, diversification can be related or non-related, right? Related diversification means that you get into something very close to what you're already doing, right? For example, your company is making leather bags and you diversify into making leather shoes. That is related diversification. Unrelated diversification, a good example of unrelated diversification, if you think about it, is the company Virgin, you know, totally unrelated, the airlines to records to whatever not, that is unrelated diversification. Related diversification, though it's not mentioned here, has two branches, guys. Related diversification can be backward diversification or forward diversification. Okay, so for example, if you take the organization I work for MAS, we started as apparel makers, right? Making apparel. Related diversification or backward diversification is when we started making raw materials, fabrics, elastics. Forward diversification when we started getting into retail by Amante or things. Is that clear in terms of understanding? Related diversification can be forward or backward. Unrelated diversification can be completely something different to what you're already doing. All clear, guys? All confused?
Okay.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna play this video. It's a little long. All right, it's a little long. However, I felt when I was doing my research, felt that this kind of gives a lot of perspective for the Ansoff matrix, where one organization can adopt all these strategies. Understood? So it does not mean that that Ansoff matrix says you need to choose only one strategy. As you grow, you can use all of these strategies together. Okay? Also, Ansoff does not mean that you need to choose one and pursue one. As you choose for market penetration, you can then start product development, market development, and diversification. The diversification can be related or unrelated. Okay, so let's quickly go through this video. It takes a little time on McDonald's and it's a little slow paced, but try to concentrate and understand what happens.
Ashiq, there's no sound.
Yes. Oops. Is it okay now?
What is an Ansoff matrix?
Yes, it's better. Hopefully, they are not showing any burgers or anything at this time.
That is used by businesses to determine their products and market growth strategies. The Ansoff matrix shows whether a business should grow and expand within new or existing markets or through new or existing products. The Ansoff matrix provides businesses clear directions and strategies for future expansion. Here's what an Ansoff matrix looks like. Market penetration. Market penetration strategy is when the business aims to sell existing products into existing markets. This strategy is used to increase or maintain market share of existing products, increase usage by existing customers, ensure dominance in growing markets, and to drive out competitors in a mature market. This is a marketing strategy that involves very little risk, as usually the company knows the product and the segment very well. How McDonald's uses market penetration? Through the Happy Meal, which ensures repeated visits by families with children, through the drive-through and delivery services, offering more convenience to customers, and through deals and clever pricing, examples, extra value meals, to beat competition and ensure market domination.
So guys, there, if you recall what I said, here, everything is about how you're selling in your existing market, existing product. And these are a lot of business model innovations. We learned this. Happy Meal, drive-through is a business model innovation, delivery service, and clever pricing and deals.
Product development. Product development strategy is when the business introduces new products into existing markets to differentiate itself from other similar businesses and remain competitive. This strategy focuses on identifying changing customer needs, the creation of new products through research and development, launching new and unique trends. This strategy can be risky if proper research has not been carried out and the new products launched do not satisfy customer requirements. How McDonald's uses product development. The Pizza McPop to cater to pizza lovers, the Date Pie, and Mac Arabia Chicken to cater to local Arab community, and the Mac Aloo Tikki to cater to the large South Asian population. Market development. Market development refers to the strategy where businesses aim to sell their current products in new, unexplored markets. This is done by identifying markets in new geographical locations, utilizing new distribution and retail channels, presenting existing products in new ways, and varying product pricing to cater to new market segments. This strategy can be risky as it is introducing the product into previously non-existing markets and customer segments. How McDonald's uses market development. By introducing McDonald's to Kazakhstan in 2015, by planning to double their current network and have more than 400 outlets in West and South India, and a Big Mac, which costs $7.8 in a mature market like Norway, is sold at $1.62 in India in order to make the product affordable to the large customer base there. Diversification. Diversification strategy is when businesses introduce new products into new markets. This strategy includes expanding using the skills and knowledge the business already has acquired through experience, diversifying into products or markets relating to the current business, and diversifying into products or markets not related to the current business. This strategy is the riskiest as the business may not currently have the necessary skills to manage the new product and change in market. How McDonald's uses diversification. Through McCafe, which are cafe-style restaurants that have been very successful, and through the Golden Arch Hotel in Switzerland, which was a failure as they tried to diversify from the core business into hospitality. Summary. To conclude, McDonald's is a business that successfully uses all the 4 strategies of growth presented in the Ansoff Matrix. Using these strategies effectively, McDonald's currently has a presence in over 121 countries with more than 36,000 outlets worldwide. It is continuously expanding. McDonald's also provides a wide range of products based on their geographic locations to cater to local tastes of their customers. McDonald's maintains their originality while diversifying into new ventures like McCafe. The expected growth from McDonald's next year is above 9.4%.
I hope, guys, that even though that was a little long, that it gave you perspective in terms of how the Ansoff matrix works, with a practical example of how McDonald's, when you analyze a company like McDonald's, how it has adopted all 4 strategies over the years it has grown. And also, guys, you also need to realize that when you submit your detailed assignment, you need to touch on these, okay, to justify your growth strategy, you know, maybe a McDonald's, maybe a Virgin, you know, sort of a thing of how these guys have used all 4 strategies over the years in terms of growing the business to 36,000 outlets in 121 countries. In a 3-year period, what do you want to do? Okay, I'm moving on from here, hoping that everything is clear. So, what are the factors that influence growth? Meaning to say, it doesn't mean these are the factors will determine that you can grow. But what we are looking at is, what are those features that will determine whether to grow or not to grow, or what the growth rate is. So for example, if we take business, the business itself, the age of the business, the size of the business, the ownership structure, the resources and capacity would determine whether the business can grow any further, it has the resources to grow any further, it's able to grow any further, etc. This basically what it says is the stage of your business in its evolution would determine either the growth rate, ability to grow, or whether it's in decline. The second factor is the industry you're in. If you're in a red ocean, the ability to grow is less than if you're, you know, not in a red ocean or more in a blue ocean. So here there is extensive competition in the industry, and your ability to grow would also depend on the barriers to entry. For example, if you're in a industry that requires high investment, okay, then you have barriers to entry, and that could be an opportunity to grow because you're already established in that. Also, in an industry where there is severe competition, it will limit your growth ability. Then the ecosystem itself, the environment, the political, economic, social, technological, the pestle analysis also will give you insights whether there are opportunities to grow or whether it's not conducive to grow. Maybe, you know, if you're in a business of importing luxury vehicles and the government decides to make the duty 500%, maybe it's something that you might decide, okay, I won't be able to sell, you know, 50 cars a month, so maybe I should only import 30 cars a month, something of that nature. Or the social factors. Again, guys, you probably remember when McDonald's went into India, you know, one of the main things that they sell is beef. And in India, the cow is very sacred. And this became a huge problem when they went into India. They had to stop that. So these factors also affect growth. Ownership, the owner himself, whether dynamic, whether you want to grow, whether you don't want to grow, it would depend on the ownership structure also. Finally, the strategy of the organization. My strategy is I don't want to grow. I want to create a niche and I want to stay in that. So all of these factors would determine whether, you know, the business can grow, can't grow, possible to grow or not possible to grow. Isuru, can you put your mic on mute, please? Okay. Okay, so that gives you an overview of what growth is all about. Any questions or comments, or anyone can add anything here? Can I move on, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on. Now, okay, so think about it. We can either grow internally or we can grow externally or through external means. Internally, we make our product more attractive and we do everything and grow our business. Or we could merge with companies, acquire companies, or create strategic alliances and grow. We could use Ansof's matrix as growth strategies, either market development, product development, diversification, any of those strategies to grow. We could look at what are those factors that would influence growth. And now what we're going to do is look at models. Look at models in terms of growth. The first one is, or what we look at is called the stage growth models. As an organization evolves, guys, we know all of this. The age of the organization would depend on the timing of the organization. So two axes are age of the organization and the size or the complexity of the organization. So it goes through five stages really. Okay, it's when you're young, you're in the existence stage: survival, growth, consolidation, and maturity. These are the 5 stages that the organization would evolve through, and in the different stages you will take different decisions on growth. Okay, different stages would take different decisions on growth. So for example, let's look at each of these stages. So the existence stage is you have just launched your product, you have just getting into the market. Here what you're trying to do is starting to understand what products and service that you have that the customers are willing to pay for. All your businesses, all the businesses that you just submitted in your assignment, when you actually go out into the market, you will realize whether the customers are getting induced by your product and are they willing to pay for it. That is your existence stage. The main factor in this existence stage is to get enough revenue to pay your bills. So in the first 3-6 months, it's really how can I generate revenue so that I can pay my overhead costs. In this stage here, it's all about the entrepreneur. It's all about you. Okay. So if you want to take some of those notes down, guys, it's totally up to you. Repeating, existence stage is all about just getting into the market. Here you are starting to understand what products and services you have that the customers are willing to pay for. Are they getting induced? Is that product conducive for them? And what challenges are they facing? The main critical factor for the entrepreneur at this stage is to generate enough revenue, because you have established your product, you have invested in it to get revenue to pay your deal, to pay the bills. It's all about you at this stage, how you run it. Second stage, assuming that you got through the existence stage, assuming that your product is actually getting sold, you go into the survival stage. You are now in the market. You have been in the market for a couple of months. You know that the customers are buying your product or service. They actually are spending money and buying your product. Now you're growing. So you can't do everything by yourself. You start investing in people. You start ramping up production or services that you're going to provide. And you start understanding what additional funding requirements you need. This stage is not about you. It's not more about yourself. It's about the people that you need to bring in to make sure you get through this stage. This is a very critical stage. This is a stage where you must survive. If you don't survive on this stage, you will fall. That's kind of the idea on this stage growth model that says survival stage is a critical stage. You have been in the market. You know what your customers want. You know that they're willing to pay for it. You have to start taking on people. You have to start ramping up. You need to decide how much do you ramp up, right? You need to understand what your financial needs are. And now it's not only about you. It's about getting in people and ramping up your business. That is survival stage. From survival stage, if you get through that stage, you're going into growth. You're going into growth. Your business is becoming larger. It's no longer, you know, where you can cater or a few people can cater. Your business is becoming larger. This is stage of success. This is called the stage of success. That means your product is established, your business is established, your business is now prospering. You are making money. You are starting to bring in management structures. You're introducing processes and systems and procedures into the organization to run the business. It's no longer just you at the young stage or you and a few people that was between a young or existing and a survival stage. You are now really prospering. You need to set up all those systems and procedures so that you don't derail at this stage. Okay, important at this stage that you do not derail. Okay, that is really the growth stage. The consolidation stage is your business is now large. You have got into that point of the growth is not as the growth rate is not as how it was in the growth stage. It's a smaller growth. It's a lower growth rate. At this stage, you need to consolidate yourself. You need to bring efficiencies into your business. You need to make sure that you have the right structures, the right systems and procedures in place so that your organization is geared to continue to grow. And finally, the maturity stage. In the maturity stage, it's the slowest growth rate. Okay, if you grow 3 to 5% per annum, it's considered good. Here, the important factor when you come into the maturity stage is all the strategies you do to remain relevant to your market and your consumers. You have to remain relevant. If there is competition who is making you irrelevant, you will lose market share and you will start going to decline. Here, the main feature is that what strategies that you do is to continue to grow even minimally and not lose market share to the competition. This is how an organization evolves, and each of the stages of growth that you go through that you need to be clear on. When you go through all of these stages, the following factors also come into play. The management style, when you're young versus at a mature stage and everything in between. The organization structures, when you're young, it's all about you or 2 or 3 people, survival stage 5, 10 people. Then you're gone into growth, there are hundreds of people, consolidation, 300, 400 people. And then in maturity stage, what do you have? So the degree of formality in the young stage, it's very informal. Everything is done talking to each other, no emails, no processes. But as you grow, the detail of formality in your organization also will change. And finally, the strategic orientation. When you're young, dynamic, you know, anything goes to formal strategies, 3-year plans, 5-year plans come into play when you're a mature business. Okay, so the growth models talk about how you evolve through the different growth stages and how the management styles, the organization structures, the formalities in the organization and the strategy organizations or strategy orientations also evolve. Hope that gives you perspective in terms of how your organization will evolve over the years. Okay. I'm going to move on from there. I hope you've got all this very clear. These are also important factors in your assignment. How your style of management and how those actions you will take in year 1, year 2, and year 3. Assuming no questions, if you all have questions, please just speak up and I'm fine with that. So that is a stage growth model. And in the stage growth model, Grainer model is a very common, and here also I'm assuming that you've gone through this model and that you understand what this model is all about. Okay. Here also, instead of me trying to go through each of these stages, I'm going to play you a video. Again, I must warn you that slightly long, but very clear and a very interesting model of business growth.
Hi there. When you're studying the challenges, the issues of business and growing, you may be able to use Greiner's model of growth as a relevant theory to help explain the strategy and the choices made by management. So let's have a quick look at the key features of this model. The model is quite complicated compared with other strategy models, but don't worry, because you don't need to be an expert in it. I think the key thing is to remember the 5 key parts to it, the 5 crises, and then also be able to apply it to a relevant business situation. So let's firstly go through the phases of growth that Greiner identified and the crises that arise, and then just explain them one at a time. Firstly, the 6 phases. Greiner suggested that a business typically goes through 6 phases of growth, starting at creativity, through direction, leading to delegation, coordination, collaboration, and lastly, alliances. The key thing about the crises, the concept of the model, if you like, is that the 5 crises occur as the business transitions between these phases. So, for example, as the business moves from the creativity phase at the start through to the direction phase, what is it that leads the business to move from phase 1 to phase 2, from creativity to direction? What was the crises that leads to that development? So let's have a look at them. The first is a crisis of leadership. This is where the business, having been driven by the creativity of the founder, starts to experience the problems of informal communication. The business starts to get a little bit too big for the leader, for him or her to get involved in everything. And the need for direction is evidenced by this crisis, the need for the first formation of a proper management structure, organizational structure, perhaps bringing in some specialist people, a finance person or a marketing person. So that's the first crisis, the crisis of leadership. That gives the business more direction, but eventually it then comes to another crisis, according to the model, called autonomy, the crisis of autonomy. Now, the business has functional management, but perhaps the founder or the leader is struggling to let go. And as these professional managers go into the business, they start to ask for more control, more autonomy over what they do. For example, the marketing manager may request a marketing budget and some control over how it's spent. That crisis leads the business to enter a new phase of delegation. The response is giving the managers in the business more delegation, more delegated responsibility. And that works fine until the business grows to a stage where the third crisis arises, which is the crisis of control. And here, in response to the more formal management structures that are in place, the business has started to find it's adding in more layers to the hierarchy. It's starting to recruit and add middle management into the business. So really what's happening here is, as there is more delegation, there are more layers added to the hierarchy, the organizational structure starts to get taller. And the effect of this is that the senior management team may not necessarily be as well versed in what's going on in the business. They start to lose touch with what's happening throughout the business. Another crisis, a crisis of control. Okay, so the response to that is to add in more features of the organizational structure, in particular a greater emphasis on communication and reporting, perhaps more extensive budgeting, more meetings. What happens here is there's a danger of a growth in organizational bureaucracy, otherwise known as red tape. And so this is the fourth crisis that Greiner suggested a growing business goes through. Red tape, bureaucracy, typically associated with slow decision making and perhaps a business or management teams who become less aware of how the external environment is changing around them. And another characteristic of businesses suffering from red tape is higher costs. Far too many layers in the hierarchy, a management structure that is overweight, if you like, too many managers for the business. And so the response to that is typically to start taking out layers of the hierarchy, the same layers we added in as the business was growing. The fifth crisis is the crisis of growth. This is where the business has started to run out of ideas. And it typically then starts to look for alternative methods of growth. The classic example would be a takeover or merger, external growth, or perhaps it may start to seek alliances as a response to the crisis of growth. You also typically see these kind of businesses start to delayer further, to recognize that the crisis of red tape has not yet been addressed, and actually the best way to start to make the business more competitive is to take layers of the management hierarchy out. We're seeing that a lot with the UK supermarket sector at the minute. Many layers of the hierarchy being removed in a bid to reduce costs and hopefully stimulate growth. So there we go, that's it, that's the Greiner's model. 6 phases of growth, but the key thing to remember are these 5 crises: leadership, autonomy, control, red tape, and finally, growth. What can we learn from the model? Well, I guess something we probably already knew, which is that growing a business isn't easy, it's difficult, and by definition, as a business gets bigger, as a business gets more complicated, as it adds more layers to the hierarchy, as it operates in different locations, that creates all kinds of crises and challenges for management. Key learning for the business is that therefore leadership and organizational structure need to evolve, need to change as the business changes. And perhaps businesses that don't recognize the need for change will not perform as well as those that do. There are some criticisms of the model. I guess like most models we look at in A-level business, it's pretty simplistic, but it serves a purpose in terms of trying to predict and explain why businesses go through problems. Of course, it's certainly the case, not every business will suffer the crises that Greiner predicts, neither will they necessarily go through the phases of growth in the way that the model predicts. And I think a valid criticism is that as business growth changes in the current environment, the model doesn't really take account of how quickly business is changing, in particular the external environment. But nevertheless, it's an interesting model and one that A-level AQA students need to have an awareness of.
I hope that gave you a good understanding of the Greiner's model. It's very practical to understand. Any questions there? I'm assuming you guys know this model. You've probably studied it somewhere else as well. Okay. You all there, guys?
Yes, Ashiq, we're here.
Okay. Okay. So fine. Assuming everyone's clear now, we talked about the growth stages and the crises as different stages of growth. Now, I'm not going to go through these slides because I think that video explained everything of the phases of growth and the crises that you're faced with, you know, the autonomy, crisis of control, etc. So you can read through these. okay, separately in terms of what each stage and phase means. You have the video as well. So moving on from there.
Ashiq, this is Dian.
Yes, yeah.
Are you going to upload all these slides in the model?
It is already uploaded. It was uploaded Thursday. Okay.
All right. No, I mean the videos also.
All videos uploaded. I'm sure you guys have it, right? Anyone who's on the Moodle, your videos are there, and you all wanted the videos uploaded separately. I did that as well.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So that's Rayner's model. The next model is McKinsey's growth model. Nothing fancy here, guys. Nothing fancy here as well. This this is McKinsey, as you know, is a consulting company. This company proposed a model which takes into consideration the Ansof's matrix and divided it into two areas. Okay. So, for example, it just talked about internal growth and external growth. So, if you take internal growth, it talks about, you know, Ansof's matrix of existing products to existing customers, existing product to new customers, new products and services, new delivery approaches, new geographies, new industry structures, and new competitive arenas. You don't need to know this in detail. It's just the concept of another org talking about a model of growth. Here they talk about the importance of having operational skills. That is, you need to be efficient to derive the best revenue and profitability. You need to have certain special assets that will definitely support growth, such as patents, strong brands, great skilled labor, and some really good customer connects that you have. You have the capability of growing in terms of product or markets, and you have some great relationships with trade organizations, with the government, with the other, you know, third parties that support growth. So this is more of a ecosystem that you try to create to grow your business. It also talks about acquisitions, joint ventures, etc. But I think the Grainer's model is more detailed and, you know, talks about an organization evolving and the crises that come about and how an entrepreneur should or would kind of address each of those. Moving on from there, guys. So if you take an overview, we talked about, you know, the different stages of existence, survival, growth, expansion, and maturity. And then we can look at it from the perspective of management structure, management style, control systems, and management rewards. If you look at this grid, it will take you through for each phases how the management, the structure, the style would evolve. Okay, so let's take a few examples. If you take management style at the existence stage, it's very individualistic. It's all about the entrepreneur. It's how the entrepreneur wants to run the business, etc. Secondly, it's directive. You have a few people coming into the organization, but still the owner or the founder is directing how to do everything, be it sales and marketing, operations, etc., and getting the work done. In the growth phase, now you've got the middle management in. You can't do everything yourself. The business is having huge growth. You're starting to delegate. You're giving autonomy to run the business. Phase 4 is watchdog. Now you have given them and you just watch from the top and try to manage the business. And maturity is everybody is participative in terms of the management style. You have matrix structures, you have team bonuses that come into play when this organization comes to this stage. So you can kind of go through all of these stages and understand the complexities an organization goes through, from merely an idea to a startup, going through existence, survival, growth, expansion, and maturity. Let me take a few minutes, right, and give you a practical example of the MAS business, or the MAS business that I work for. So if you think about it, in 1986, in the year 1986, and you probably know this story, but I'll just give you certain areas where business growth comes into play. In 1986, three brothers founded a business with 20 sewing machines with an investment of $10,000, right? Three guys, they thought they'll start this business. They had links into textile because they were coming from a family background of making fabrics, the Nagindas. People may know it. They established this business in 1986, $10,000, 20 sewing machine operators. And they established the business. They never thought, probably never believed it would be $1 billion business in 30 years. Okay. So everything was managed by the three brothers. The marketing aspect, the product aspect, communication with the customers, etc. As the business started to grow, they had to bring in people or professionals to run the business. Then people started coming in at executive grade, at assistant manager grade, at general manager grade, and even at director grade. So the control that Mahesh, Ajay, and Sharad had to be delegated over the years. And each SBU had its own CEOs, where a framework of policies and procedures are given, but the CEO was given the autonomy to run the business as he or she wanted it. And how they control is merely through policies, budgets, or LRP discussions. So that is in terms of management. In terms of growth was primarily through partnerships. When MA started in 86, they came into a joint venture, external growth, a partnership with Mast Industries, who was Martin Trust at that time. And that gave access to brands in the US. Through that, they started growing. When they started growing like that, they realized important to have supply chain. So growth came through backward integration, diversification, the growth strategy, diversification through backward integration, setting up a fabric mill, setting up a lace manufacturing, setting up hooks and eyes, and setting up elastic. So the business evolved from the management control of three brothers to bring in professionals to run the business, started backward integration through diversification, setting up raw materials for it. In 2005, it went into product diversification. Till 2005, from 1986, MAS for women. And that became mature. That became very difficult, and identified that a category of growth was active and sportswear. Started investing into product diversification and started an arm of working with brands like Nike, Lululemon, Calvin Klein Sportswear, etc. So you saw that aspect coming into the market. They also decided, okay, forward diversification, getting into retailing. So backward diversification, getting into the supply chain, forward diversification, getting into retail by establishing a brand called Amante or Things, right? So that evolved. Today, MAS has organization structures, there is red tape in the organization, there is a lot of systems and procedures that are coming into play, and today MAS is a large organization. So in 32 years, growing into $1 billion business, covering all aspects of the crises the Grenier model suggested. Okay, so you have a practical example of how that worked in Sri Lanka in this company. I'm sure the companies that all of you guys work for also has gone through this evolution and the crises that it's faced with. So now we know how growth all is about, how you can grow. How do you actually execute growth strategies? To execute growth strategies, guys, one essential component is you have to have the capability. You have to be successful in entering the market. You have to have the right people in place. You have to have that ways and means of understanding that customer and building organizational capabilities for growth. If you don't have the right structures and the right people and you try to grow, the market rejects your product, you will go into decline. Second aspect is performance management structures. What gets measured gets done. You must have all of those measurement features to see, are we growing properly? Is the revenue coming in? Is the revenue coming in with profitability? Do we have the right cash in hand? And finally, leadership. Have we got the right leaders in place? If the right leaders are not in place, they might go after just revenue and not profitability. Okay, so you have those things that you need to realize when you are bringing the strategies into play. Criticisms of growth models. In that video of Grenier, you saw some are too simplistic. Does not necessarily mean that every organization will go through every single phase, and it may not go through a particular sequence of, you know, introduction, growth, maturity, success, and whatever. It can go through varying levels based on market conditions. It also says that the growth models don't take the market dynamics into consideration. And certain organizations may not grow. They might come to a particular level and say, look, I like to be at this level. I don't want to grow anymore. Okay. So those are some of the criticisms of the growth model, be it Graner's, McKinsey's, or whatever growth models that you see. It does not necessarily mean that those are the know-all and end-all, and those are the ones that companies must look at in terms of growing their businesses. You can take inspiration out of it. You can learn from it. It doesn't mean that just because you follow it, you will have a successful growth business. This is just a grid. Take your time and understand it. Which strategy best fits your business? What am I going to do? You know, is it, if you take Ansof's matrix, all businesses, it says, and we saw it in McDonald's, the example, all businesses start off, every single business starts off with a market penetration strategy. That is, you try to exploit the market with your product that you're bringing out and try to create market share. Okay, that's what you do. Okay, here it talks about the investment and the returns that you expect. If your investments are high and the returns are high, it says, let's expand, let's grow. If your investments are low and your returns are really low, you will say restrain, downsize, you know, reduce the size of your business as much as you can, because you can't throw out money. So this grid kind of gives you an idea of, okay, at what point should I expand? What point should I just simply exploit the market when I'm just entering? And which points do I restrain myself without growing? Characteristics of businesses. Businesses generally, they can look at it from an animal's perspective. The mice businesses are small, vulnerable startup businesses. These can evolve into gazelles or elephants, or they can die off, right? So mice businesses are entrepreneurial driven, small startup businesses, little market influencers when they start. They are agile, so they can move really fast, like little mice can. And as you know, as we started off in our first lecture, in a lot of startups, maybe 10-15% survive and aspire to grow. The rest either stay at the same size or decline. Gazelle businesses are those businesses in growth. The rule of thumb is if a business on 4 consecutive years grows at 20% plus growth business and they are above average profit, they are gazelle businesses. And finally, elephants are those large, huge businesses. They command a lot of respect. They are not agile as mice or gazelles. They can't change direction really fast, but they have a lot of influence over the marketplace. Such as, for example, the General Electrics of the world, or the Microsofts of the world, or the Amases of the world, or the John Keels of the world are elephants, or those large organizations that find it difficult to quickly move, quickly change, and have agility and flexibility in their businesses. So these are the 3 types of businesses. The mice are the small, agile, flexible, quick to change, quick to adapt businesses. Gazelles are those fast moving, high growth, growing at more than 20% per annum, above average profitability, agile businesses that then turn into elephants, which are large, mature, cannot change really fast, have not really got agility and flexibility in their DNA, but they command a lot of respect because they are big businesses serving a lot to countries' economies as well. Finally, the question of, do we grow or do we not grow? Are we happy with what we've got? Are we a business that have a niche and that we know, for example, that our business is patent protected and that we can have that patent forever, and that people, whoever want that product or service have no choice but to come to us until somebody else at some point comes up with a substitute, and you're happy with that? You could stick to that. And then at times, growing businesses can be very stressful. So am I not happy with what I have? And do I not stay small? So this is really, you can't just put it on a slide here, guys. This is a discussion. The general norm is, the general theory in business is, there is nothing called a static business. If you are static, you will decline and you will die, is the idea, unless you have a complete monopoly and a complete advantage that nobody can take over your business. For example, like, maybe electricity in Sri Lanka, it's all government owned. Nobody can take it unless, the government decides to give rights to somebody else. But as you know, even in such businesses, substitutes come in, such as solar. Okay, so the consumption goes down. So you have the decision to make. Do I just hold on to a niche and remain, or do I look at growing? The theory, of course, in management says that there is nothing called a static business. Either you grow or you invest and continue to increase some amount of market share, or you will fall into decline because substitute products will come in, competition will come in and steal your market share. And some final thoughts on this is listen to this video.
Ashiq?
Yeah. Sorry.
One question on that.
Yes.
If some, let's say a business guy decides, okay, I want to stay in this niche or whatever.
Yes.
In that case, the financing models and everything also has to be allocated that way, right? So if the business is not growing, but it's a recurring revenue business, there might not be investors who are willing to invest money. So then you have to find out other ways to for the resource financing,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. So also that at that point, so you may not need a lot of finance as well, because you're static. The money you make, that you have retained profits, is enough to reinvest in the business for whatever you want in terms of operations. So you may need not to go out for external finance, or you may not need partnerships.
Sure.
Okay.
If you want to have success as an entrepreneur, stay focused. Don't get distracted. It's too easy to look at all the shiny objects around us and jump onto another opportunity because we think it's going to be exciting. You feel the momentum, but you have to stay focused on what you're doing. Tap into something that you passionately believe in and stay focused on achieving that goal until you go out and actually get it done. I got a question from one of my YouTube viewers who challenged me on the stay focused theme. His name is John. Great question. He wrote in saying, I don't know if I should focus or diversify. I look at guys like Richard Branson who've had a lot of success in diversification and wonder if that's the right path for me. So here's the thing, John. That's a great point. Okay. I love modeling success. It's a great idea. It gives you motivation and gives you strategies on what to do for your business. It's great to look up to guys like Richard Branson. Whoever inspires you, whoever you want to be like, learn as much as you can from them. If you love Richard Branson, it's great to look at where he is now. Owner and part owner of tons of businesses. If you want to replicate his success, look at how he got started. Look at what he was doing at the very early days of building a business. Because when he started, he was focused on one business. He built up that business before expanding into other areas. He became great at what he did by focusing in on the one thing that he was really good at. His first attempts at diversification actually didn't go so well. In his first company, he noticed that everybody at the company was going to eat at this restaurant for lunch, for dinner. So he decided, why not buy the restaurant? So he bought the restaurant, and it didn't go well for him. Whatever, he was trying, he was diversifying. It didn't work. He learned from it and was able to build up from there. But his first business, he focused like crazy on it. He built it up to the point where he not only was able to survive off of it, that's your first challenge, making enough money to pay your bills and feed yourself, but to grow a huge empire from one business. And then focused on going after other companies. So we're both right. You can be like Richard Branson. You can diversify. You can have investments in tons of different companies. But start with one thing and focus on it and make it awesome before you open up your bandwidth. Because if you do it too soon, you're not going to have success. And too many entrepreneurs try. It's so tempting. It's so tempting to jump on something new because it's exciting and you feel you can contribute. And at the beginning stages of the company, there's so much passion and energy into it. And you'll find that you just keep doing that. You get to a certain point, then you flatline. So you jump to something else. You start over. Flatline, start over, flatline. And you never build anything of value. So start off by focusing on one thing. Make it amazing. Make it awesome. Pour yourself into it. And then focus on doing other things that you want to do. Believe. For those of you watching, please give this.
So, guys, I mean, that's some important closing thoughts. You know, all you guys have come up with all your ideas. The important factor is you really focus on it till the point you know that actually this can be a successful business and make it successful, rather than getting distracted and trying to do too many things at the same time, and we won't be able to do it. Now, the example of Richard Branson is true to its word. You know, people are serial entrepreneurs, but you first have to get that first business going so that you can make money out of that to diversify and grow other businesses. Very important. Okay, all companies who started and who have really got into this stage are the ones who really focused on that first business, grew that business, made it successful, and then were able to then diversify either related, unrelated, backwards or forwards, and get into new businesses. Any closing thoughts by anyone? Guys, any comments, any suggestions? Was everything okay for today?
Yeah, Ashiq, just one small question.
Yeah.
In terms of the present, in terms of what we have to do with regard to the assignment.
Yes.
You mentioned some things like scale, but some of the proposals are essentially extensions to an existing business, right? So,
yeah.
What I want to know is, in that case, should we consider, let's say, that existing business as the start of a new product cycle, kind of, in the sense, you know what I mean? Like, start of a new cycle and grow it through the motions like that? Or
you have to show scalability, even if it's an existing business. You're bringing something, a new enhancement to it, no?
Correct.
So the new enhancement has to have scalability.
Right. And the sustainability of that particular new
That's
edition.
correct. Absolutely correct.
Right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. That you're creating something new on an existing business. Now, that creating something new gives your existing business also a longer life now. So it's like at a maturity stage, you introduce something and then that grows. So that has to have scalability. And then your whole business will have scalability. Good question. And I hope I answered you.
Right. Yeah, thanks.
Any others, guys, in terms of, based on the assignment submitted and the requirements of growth and scalability, anything that you have? No. Okay. So thank you very much, guys. Just a couple of things. As I said, I think I've completed marking 21 of your assignments. I'm hopefully going to complete everything by Wednesday, and whichever form, the feedback will come onto your Moodle, etc., or come to you directly through the institute. However, from Wednesday onwards, once it's all done, if anyone wants to call me up, etc., and get some quick feedback over the phone, you're welcome to do so once it's all out. Okay. In the meantime, I'm not going to name all the ones that I finished, but maybe it'll be easy if you guys want even to call and check if your assignments are over so that I can give you some feedback. Okay, you're free to do that during the week. If nothing else, guys, thank you very much for your time. Hope the session was useful and helps you on your assignments. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.